Good morning and many blessings. Welcome again to Reiko P. Blackheart Sunday Detox, or Reiko's Sunday Detox. And if you're listening, you're either listening through Podbean, Spotify, or YouTube. And if you guys are just now tuning in for your very first episode, we have been talking about this month the New Year, New Me trend. And every week we've been talking about different levels of health. First week we talked about physical health. Last week we talked about mental, and this week we're going to be talking about emotional. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and dive in, because guess what? You need every one of those pieces and components to be on your best health game. So let's talk about the most important one, which is your emotional health. Because guess what? If your emotional health is not intact, you are not going to be able to get up at night, and you're going to drain yourself mentally. So what I can go ahead and tell you is this. I can tell you as a water sign, I know some people are going to probably be like, oh, she's going to start talking about astrology. Yes, I'm going to start talking about astrology. Because as people know, I call myself the neighborhood friendly witch. And the reason why I do that is because I try to stay in tune with myself physically, mentally, emotionally, as well as spiritually in tune. And you have to know yourself on every level and aspect. And your astrology has a huge major play on who you are and who you become throughout your life in your different stages of your life. So I am a water sign. I am a Pisces. Typically, that means I am very emotional, very in tune with other people's emotions. And it means I'm very empathetic, or I am an empath. So I have to continue protecting my emotions and protecting myself from other people's emotions. So this is why my subject on protecting your emotional aspect is like one of my favorites. I can tell you I've been struggling with that for years, but I have found something that works for me. It may not work for everyone, but it works for me. Now, I've been on this guidance not as a New Year, New Me trend, but these are just some of the key points that I've learned over my years of trying to get myself emotionally healthy, especially being a person that easily you can twirl my emotions when I was younger. I just learned that there are a lot of people out there that will figure out an emotional person's weakness and use it against their person. So what I'm going to do is talk about how you can protect yourself emotionally so you can be able to balance yourself physically and mentally. First things first, like I've been telling you on every episode, make sure you're getting some rest. Make sure you are being hygienic and practice those key components of getting the adequate amount of rest and drinking the amount of water and keeping hydrated. Now, here's the deal with emotional aspect. You need to be very aware of your emotions and how you react. A lot of people don't realize, because they're so conditioned to act or react a certain way, and they don't notice when life makes you sad or frustrated or angry, and you don't pay attention to the fluctuations in your voice or anything of that nature, especially when you're addressing people. Like somebody can simply come up to you and say, hey, are you okay? And you respond like, yeah, I'm fine. That is an emotional reaction, and a lot of people don't pay attention to it. So you have to be aware of your emotions and your reactions, and a lot of people, that is the hardest thing to do. Stress is a mental thing and it's an emotional thing, and if you're not paying attention, that thing will drain you. So you have to really pay attention to how you're reacting, the fluctuation in your tone, and how people are perceiving it, especially if you want to figure yourself out. Now, you want to express your feelings in appropriate ways, on top of being aware of your emotions and your reactions. Like, when you're expressing your feelings in appropriate ways, you got to let people know when something is bothering you. Don't be afraid to speak up, because I know as humans, we're conditioned to say or not say things to protect other people. But if something is bothering you, you need to address it. And you can't keep feelings of sadness or anger within yourself, because it does add on to stress. And like, again, stress is a very, very silent killer. And you may not think that these little moments of anger or sadness is gonna pass over. In all actuality, it's doing a lot of damage to your body. Think of how growing up we used to watch a lot of Looney Tunes, but if we sat here and packed something in like a cartoon, like a bunch of things into like a bag, and then that bag starts overflowing and to the point that it's about to bust, that is your body with their emotions. When you sit here and you pack in those emotions like sadness and anger and, you know, stress under like the belt, or put it on the back burner or within yourself, at some point in time you're going to blow up. And when you blow up, it's not good. Either it's going to blow up and it's going to cause you severe depression, or it's going to blow up where you snap at somebody and you ruin some friendships or family, or, you know, cause yourself to have problems in relationships or at work or at school, because now you're at this point where you don't let things, or you kept biting your tongue on a lot of things that were bothering you, even if it's something super minimal. And a lot of times when it comes down to the emotional aspect, we have a habit of biting down our anger and sadness to protect other people, not realizing it's doing harm to us. And if that person cares about you, they will understand and respect your wishes if something is bothering you or making you sad or making you upset. You have to be comfortable enough with those people to tell them and express your feelings appropriately. Now, also expressing it appropriately, you should know what is appropriate and not appropriate. Like if you're sad, you can just say, hey, you know, what you did kind of made me a little sad and I didn't like it. Versus, you know, if something makes you angry, like, no, man, you're really making me mad right now. Like, I tell people, like, if you're starting to irritate me, I'm like, hey, you're starting to irritate me. Like, I still try to keep a calm voice about it. And I'm like, hey, if you don't stop, you're really going to provoke me. And I know for me, I'm one of those people where, like, I have my emotional moments where I need to recharge. And my biggest trigger, because of my PTSD, I used to have a person that used to tell me all the time, like, hey, I'll be there for you. But anytime that I needed them, they were never there. So for me, like when people tell me I'm here if you ever need me, I tell them, like, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. If I need you, you don't need to tell me, because for me, being told is a trigger. I'd rather see it in action. So I tell people all the time, like, don't tell me you're going to be there, because it is a trigger for me, because it just makes me remember of all the times that people told me they were going to be there and they were never there. So just let me see it in action. If I need you, I will call upon you and you just show me. So I have people who would continue provoking, and occasionally I would literally say things and blow up in their face, because I'm like, hey, you're provoking me. Like, I need you not to tell me these things. It's a trigger for me. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I don't tell them it's a trigger. I just like, hey, just leave it alone. Leave it alone. I'll come back. Leave it alone. I get it. Just walk away. But that's not appropriate. So the more appropriate thing to be like, hey, I know you're trying to help, but that's a trigger for me. I'll come to you if I need you. So that's what I mean, like expressing it in appropriate ways. And also, with expressing your feelings in appropriate ways, you should always think before you act. I know as a person and as a woman who's also very emotional, emotions can be very powerful. And I think it's probably one of the most powerful things that we have as humans. We have the ability to break and make our own happiness. And what I mean by that is, and I like using the happiness versus anything else, is because we can create our own happiness just like we can destroy it. If you sit here and you're happy because you're doing something that you love, that's you creating your happiness. But in the same note, you can turn around and take that same thing that makes you happy and literally destroy it. So, example, you can be in a very good relationship. It's a happy moment relationship. And then you turn around and you do something without thinking about it. And you basically act on it because of an emotional impulse. Now you snapped at somebody and said something in a low blow and you didn't think about it. Now this person is hurt. And because this person is hurt, because you didn't think about what you said before you said it, now you done lost somebody who made you happy. Because now that person has trust issues. That person now feels hurt that you may possibly hurt them again. It is one of those things you have to take time and think. And as a person who cares, on the other end of the aspect, if you are listening just to see how to deal with somebody who's very emotional, if they're having a blow up moment and they're just like, hey, leave me alone, just know that, hey, look, it's not ill will or ill content, because at that moment they may not be thinking, but just give them time to think. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you some time. Calm down, and we'll come back and revisit this later. There's other ways to come back and say, hey, I'm here if you need me. Then you can just say, hey, we'll come and revisit this subject later. And I'm just like, I've learned over the years that, I can't just up and tell people like, hey, I'm here if you need me. Because it's just the normal go-to. So you just gotta think long and hard, because again, like I said, with the emotional aspect, it's kind of hard. Like I said, it's easier said than done. You're going to think you have everything in control, but your emotions will outweigh your thinking logic, especially if you're an emotional person. So it's going to be harder for you to kind of ground yourself. So you have to just kind of close your eyes, breathe, just exhale, and say, is this really worth getting emotional over? Is this really worth blowing up? Do I really want to say something or do something that I'm going to regret later? And it's a matter of taking a moment. Yes, I understand time is of the essence in sometimes, but at the same time, you don't want to be rash and jump into something because of an emotional impulse, because later you may be miserable. And that could also be a positive negative balance thing. Sometimes people jump into something emotionally, like a quick relationship, because they feel like, well, I love somebody right now, but if I don't, because time is of the essence, you may jump into a relationship because of emotions, and then later down the line, that emotion dies, and it's actually lust instead of love. And now you done jumped into something versus sitting and thinking about it. And I know sometimes that's not the case for everybody, but in some cases that is the case. So you want to breathe on that. You also want to manage your stress. Now, with stress, like I said, stress is one of those things that can make or break you physically, mentally, and emotionally. You got to learn to relax. You have to learn to basically say the serenity prayer. I may not be a very religious person, but honestly, it is probably one of the most ideal things to think of, because we can't control a lot of things. The only thing is you can just control how you handle it. You can't control things that come into your life. You can just control how you deal with it and handle it. So instead of getting mad about something not going the way that you want, just say, you know what, maybe that was not the time for me to tackle this particular incident. Maybe I need to readdress it differently. You just have to manage and balance it a little bit differently and just say, okay, it's not the time. You have to just find a healthy balance, because, like, again, stress is a very silent killer. It will weigh on your body. It will make you look older physically. Mentally, it will make you have headaches and cause you to end up not thinking straight. And then emotionally, it can drain you and make you depressed and sad and upset. So you have to take time and think and realize that you need to exercise and physically manage that stress. So you have to figure out what is worth your time and what's really not worth your time. You want to strive for balance on the level of physical, mental, and emotional. Find something between work and play, and making time for activities that you enjoy, and resting and eating properly, because that also brings you forms of happiness. I'm one of those people, like when I get stressed, I want to eat. And that's where I find my coping mechanism. And that's not a good coping mechanism as you get older, but eating is good. And, finding a happy balance between things that you enjoy. Like, I'm one of those people, like, when I get upset and stuff, I want to go do something physical. So I'm like, okay, cool. I want to go bowling, and I'll go eat. Or I try to make time for myself once a week to take myself out, because that is a balance for me. Finding time for myself, finding time between work and, play. And that's my play. Like, I work all the time, so I have to find that healthy balance. Taking care of your physical health is a huge factor. I tell people that, physical health and mental health can really affect each other. Like, if one thing on the scale outweighs the other, it kind of teeters a little bit. So you have to take some time to exercise, even if it means stretching, that first good stretch in the morning, because I know how good that feels for me. It may feel great for you. So making sure you get those healthy stretches in every day, and take a couple walks. Wake up in a beautiful day and decide to go walk on the beach if you happen to live near a beach, or go walk through the mountains, or go for a hike. Eating some healthy meals. I've realized that I actually got a lot happier when I eat fruit versus when I eat candy. Don't get me wrong, candies are like guilty pleasure, but for some reason or another, like with fruit, I get super ecstatic. If you ever see me in person and I'm sitting here eating a peach, I swear I become like a kid. It's not even funny. Or if I'm eating tacos, like I look at tacos like they are the love of my life, and that is just me. And it's not the most healthiest thing to eat, but I eat it in moderation and as a healthy thing. And then you want to focus on positive things in your life. Like, you want to know that when it comes down to those eating healthy meals, you're like, okay, I made sure I ate 3 meals a day. That's looking at positive things. Hey, look, I accomplished a lot at work today. I may have had a stressful day at work, but hey, I made it. And you don't want to be upset like if you didn't do something at work. You just got to look at the positive things you did, because guess what? Tomorrow's a new day. It's a brand new start. It's a reset. And you don't want to overindulge in some of your guilty pleasures. I know I can't say don't abuse like drugs or alcohol, because guess what? I do drink. I am a social drinker. I am a old smoker. I used to, smoke religiously on cigarettes and stuff like that. But you don't want to overindulge on those things. You don't want to overindulge in sleep. You don't want to overindulge in eating guilty foods like burgers or tacos and everything else like that. And you also don't want to overindulge in working out either, because too much of a good thing is also a bad thing. So when it comes down to the physical health, you want to look at those things and realize that, okay, cool. You don't want to over focus on the things in your life either, because that is one of those things. So you don't want to overindulge on a lot of those things, like focusing on your positives. You don't want to overindulge in exercising, overindulge in eating, overindulge in sleep, or drinking or things of that nature, because that does affect your emotional health. It does play an influence on your physical and mental and emotional health. You also want to connect with others. And I mean, like, as humans, we are social creatures. We need positive connections with other people. So you have to know who to stay connected with. You don't want to have people in your circle that every day they're miserable, every day they're upset. And I mean, like, I get it. As humans, we want to sit here and make all of our friends happy, but some people you cannot make happy. You cannot make people happy if they're not happy with themselves. You can sit here and tell them how great they are all day, every day. And if they do not believe it, you are not doing anything but wasting your time. So instead of doing that, send them to my podcast, because then I can sit here and make them appreciate themselves better, because honestly, happiness begins with self. You cannot rely on other people to make you happy. You have to rely on yourself to make yourself happy. So you want to protect your emotional energy by staying around other positive people, and try to make a lunch date with them, go to the movies with them, and even say hi to strangers. If somebody is smiling and stuff at you, be okay with saying hi to somebody. As social people, we fail to realize that there has been case studies where there have been children who died in case studies where they basically had children be coddled by their parents, and then children who were just basically left alone and they died. As humans, we need positive energy and positive emotional reinforcement and connection to survive. As antisocial as some of us can be and introverted as some of us would be, a lot of the introverts still have a close-knit circle of people that they do interact with, because as humans, we do need that social interaction, whether it's with people or whether it's with our animals, we still need it. So just make sure you connect with others a little bit, even if it's just to a small level, and you don't want to connect with the wrong people. So make sure you figure out who is the best connection that you can be with, and hold them and value them, and tell them, hey, I appreciate that you're in my life because you bring value to my life. Make sure as a human, we figure out things that bring us purpose and meaning in our life. So you want to find out and figure out what is important in your life. Like, who's important? What do you do that's important? Focus on that and continue focus on that, because that brings you joy. And that could be your work that you do. You could take pride in your work. And guess what? Pride is still an emotion. So you could take pride in your work, in your family, in volunteering, caregiving, spending your time doing what feels meaningful to you. So you need to sit down one day when you are starting to reevaluate your life and feeling like, why am I always emotionally upset? Why am I drained? Why am I sad? Why am I angry? Find the things in your life that brings you meaning and focus your feelings on that. Even if it means focusing on the people in your life that bring you meaning, because maybe it's time for you to cycle out some old friends who are not bringing you any purpose or meaning anymore. You'd be surprised. I've gone through this once or twice, and people are like, how do you keep gaining and losing friends? Because some people, I've lost meaning. They've lost, a feeling of meaning to me. They're not bringing me any kind of value, and they're not bringing me any kind of happiness. They're bringing me nothing but misery. And because I can't make them happy, because they don't want to be happy. And if you can't make someone happy, then, I can't do nothing for you. You want to try to stay positive. So, like, going back to what I was saying, that you may reevaluate your day and reanalyze your day, and then you were like, oh, I didn't accomplish this today. I didn't accomplish that. You don't want to focus on the negative too much, because guess what? When you focus on the negative too much, you're weighing down on your negative scale of your balance, and you're putting more on the negative scale versus the positive, when you could focus on the good things that you did today. Hey, look, I got breakfast in. I don't normally eat breakfast. Oh, I didn't drink as many cups of coffee, and I've been trying to cut down on that. I'm so proud of myself. Ooh, I maybe got up from my desk and walked around a little bit. Hey, I got a sale today. It's the little things that we have to find that are positive in our life that we have to hold on to, versus looking at the negative things that we did that day. You want to think about it like, hey, I said hi to 4 people today. I sat here and I made somebody's day today. Like, for me, I work in an industry where I can leave a lasting impression, and I have people come up. If one person comes up to me that day, I can have 182 passengers pass me. But if one person comes up and they sit here and tell me that I made their day, and I sat here and brought some kind of positivity, and they love how I delivered something, I am hanging on that the whole day, because guess what? That is the positive thing I did that day. So that's all that really matters to me. And I am okay with that, because at the end of the day, I found something to be happy about. I can sit here and see 3 babies and be like, oh, I'm in love. And that right there makes me feel happy. And people don't realize, as creatures, we find one thing to look forward to every single day. And if that one thing isn't there, we get upset. So instead of focusing on the one thing, like preemptively, why don't we look at things that happened in the day that we are happy about? Like, hey, I got a sale today. Hey, I got 3 sales today. Or in most cases, what I used to do, which I found out was so problematic, I used to find 1 or 2 people I was cool with at work. And those are like my work buddies that I was like real cool with. And some cases, my work buddies would not show up to work. And I'm like getting ready for work, like, yeah, I'm going to go see, Sarah. I'm just making up names, by the way, guys. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get to see Sarah today. And then Sarah not come to work because she got sick, and she didn't let me know she was sick. So now I'm devastated the whole day. Now I'm sitting here at work miserable versus looking at any good thing else I did that day. That's not what we have to do. We have to kind of change things around. You have to kind of just, instead of preemptively think of the things that we're going to do, think of the things that we accomplished. As we are getting up, like, hey, I didn't press snooze on the alarm 8 times today. That is a positive. You woke up on time. You woke up, you were blessed. You have your sight. You did not. Just find little things in your life. Because believe me, you have a lot of things in the world that is already trying to drag you down. So instead of allowing it weigh you down, you want to find things that are going to bring you joy, because emotions is a very, very powerful thing. You can literally make new memories or break new memories based off of your emotions alone. And I don't know. I suggest a lot of people watching Inside Out, I think is the name of the movie, with all the different emotions inside of our head. That is the cutest movie. I don't care how old you are, but I feel like everybody should sit here and watch that movie, because literally, if you look at that movie in a full sense as an adult, because children would look at it as, oh, it's a cute movie, and this is why I feel the way that I do. All the emotions you have in your life, a lot of things happen, and you can't dwell on the sadness, because a lot of things will happen. But there's always a positive to a negative. You just have to find it. And if you dwell too much on the negative aspect, you will never see the positive. Everything happens for a reason. I literally will tell you like this. I had a day, actually in the last 2 days, and I'm going to use my life again. I always do when it comes to my podcast. I had a day where I had a flight that canceled. And because the flight canceled, I had to stay there almost until 12:30. And normally I leave at like 9, 10 o'clock at the latest. But I had to stay an extra 2 hours to finish things out, make sure people had their hotel accommodations. And for some reason, one lady, and I was getting frustrated, and I knew I was getting frustrated, but I kept sitting here questioning, like, why can I get her booked in this hotel? Why can't I get her in this hotel? Why can't I get her in this hotel? And I'm just tired and exhausted, and I was trying to rush, not realizing there was a reason it was happening. So with the canceled flight, with me having the issue, I was frustrated. And now I'm sitting here, I'm starting to trail on home. I'm walking to my car, get to my car safe and sound. I exhale, and then I get in my car and I'm driving. And as I'm driving away from work, I'm super exhausted still. A car was on the wrong side of the road. And I almost got hit head on. And this is recent. This is literally at the beginning of this year. And if I did not leave when I left, I would have probably not been here today. And instead of sitting here dwelling on the negative, the next day, I actually got a day off from work. And I got to sit down and really think about it. Like all that stuff that happened, because if I would have left on time, if I would have left within that time frame, if I didn't have to stay a little couple extra minutes, I would have probably been in a car accident because that car hit another car before he got to where I was. So if I would have left earlier, I would have lost my life. So even if it was a negative that I had to stay at work, and it was a negative that I almost got into a car accident, I'm still here alive today and I'm breathing. And a lot of people dwell so much on negative things in their life, not realizing that you can never sit here and become a better person and become better. You have to forgive yourself for making little mistakes. You have to forgive yourself for things that not going right in your life. You have to forgive the universe for things not going the way it does. Like if you do not get a job, just say, okay, well, maybe there's another job in the horizon that's going to be better for me. I can tell people all the time, like if you've ever seen my IG, if you ever talked to me in person, I come from a very negative background, but instead of making that my trauma story or my bad backstory, I make it my success story because it helped me grow to who I am today. Instead of me being a regular little goddess in everybody's eyes, I am literally, not a goddess, a queen in everybody's eyes. I am a goddess because I'm still caring. I'm still compassionate. I'm still very loving. I'm not on drugs. Don't have multiple babies. I'm not a manipulator, but I could have been. I could have literally let my past be my tragedy story, but I let it be my success story. It made me who I am today. And I'm going to continue being who I am because instead of dwelling on my backstory as a negative, I've realized that I learned a lot from it. I learned everything that I learned not to be from it. So it's the same with your thing with your emotions. Just because a negative emotion happen or a negative thing happen, you can turn it into a positive and learn something. So as a person, as a human, from one human to another, as one magical creature to another magical creature, try to make sure you guys protect yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally. Make sure you sleep. Make sure you get water. Make sure you realize when you need time to yourself. It is okay not being okay, mentally, physically, or emotionally, but don't stay in that state for too long. You want to make sure you take care of yourself. And as we go into the new year and we go into the new century and a new cycle and a new moon, you want to make sure that you take care of you before you could take care of anybody else. And as always, I want you guys to protect your energy and continue on that path. And I will check you guys out next week. Again, this has been Reiko's Sunday Detox, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week.